The Morality of Edward Elric, something I think a lot of people empathize with and something I feel like is multifaceted enough to grant an entertaining video. Apparently, I also thought that 3 years ago, since I already made a video on that topic. Maybe you've seen it. That video
sucked.
Seriously, it's like 8 minutes of me talking about Kant and the trolley problem garbage, and I don't even cover the inclusion of O3. Also, the thumbnail is in the wrong aspect ratio. Never trust an idiot who can't look up the aspect ratio of a YouTube thumbnail and then not carry through successfully. Seeing as I have been doing that successfully for a long time now, though, let's talk about the Morality of Edward Elric for real this time, shall we? But first, I want to introduce probably the most significant person that has talked about Full Metal Alchemist on YouTube.com. It's ft.Lowart, also known as the Full Metal Expert by no one. Seriously, this man has put out 13 well-researched and scripted videos with a total runtime of these videos coming to a combined 5 hours, 13 minutes, and 15 seconds. He basically has a custom-made textbook worth of notes for every character interaction. So that guy is in this video, and you'll see him later. He also helped me give a second opinion on everything I say here, and he doesn't know I'm giving him this introduction at the moment. So if you have any problems with this video, it's all his fault. I take no responsibility. Edward Elric is driven. Despite the catastrophic event that set off and tried to curse Ed and Al's future, caused by themselves no less, Edward still holds on to the idea that while it was a mistake they made, it was their mistake. No one else can be blamed, and they know now what it means to quote-unquote play God. One of the early stories you see with Ed is in ft.Lowart, with other people who are also playing God, albeit in a slightly different way. They are usurping the faith of the people, and Ed is extremely open and skeptical of such a thing, even before any big reveals. If we're talking in general, Ed places a lot of weight into independence and critical thought. It's the backbone for one of the story's most famous quotes, although there are a couple variations on the exact wording. It basically goes, "There is no such thing as a painless lesson. They just don't exist. Sacrifices are necessary. You can't gain anything without losing something first. Although, if you can endure that pain and walk away from it, you'll find that you have a heart strong enough to overcome any obstacle." Yeah, a heart made full metal. This quote stabilizes that this isn't something that can happen if you don't carry your own burden and take your own responsibility and blame for your actions. If you don't set yourself up to experiment and experience the lessons personally, you may end up hurting from time to time, but the depth and context for that hurt helps you understand others better. It lets you understand how to avoid it in the future. That is the triumph of using your own brain and making your own decisions. Because even if you hurt along the way learning, having learned lets you avoid even greater hurts, when obstacles no doubt enter your life. The idea that you should never give up on your mental faculties to another is something ft.Lowart focuses heavy on. Of course, Ed still has empathy for those who fall into the trap, but at the start of the arc, people berate Ed for questioning sacred authority and God's will. Thing is, even if you believe in a God, you should have the faculties to attempt to recognize when a church is going out of control or doing something power-hungry. There are many churches that disagree with each other. If you want to truly serve your God, you should be willing, even then, to consider that maybe the specific church you're at isn't the right one. Critical thought is, in summary to Full Metal Alchemist and Ed, always beneficial in the end. Sometimes it may cause suffering, sometimes it may lead to human error, but at the end, you will always be a more well-rounded person for it, and someone who understands how the world operates better. This also comes with something Ed is never afraid to do, even if uprooting customs or powerful figures. Ed believes in speaking his mind, something at his own detriment and failure even, but he would rather argue and then admit himself to being wrong than stay quiet and stew with the wrong mindset forever. Something heavy in Full Metal Alchemist and Edward Elric's morality as a whole is the idea of guilt and forgiveness, and specifically how Ed conceptualizes reconciling these sorts of guilts through action. The guilt Ed holds over what happened to his precious brother Al keeps him up at night, but even when he sleeps, he goes to sleep knowing that try as Al might, partially due to his actions, Al can't sleep anymore at all. You also see this with the people dealing with their actions after the Ishvalan War. Riza's conversation with Ed is fairly different between versions. If you want a full version of that, by the way, Lowart has some great videos. But the manga better goes into the idea of self-sacrifice as a BS self-serving idea. When characters opt to sacrifice themselves to a cost or in the name of something, Ed thinks that that is nothing more than a way to quell guilt, if it isn't absolutely necessary. It's better to continue working with your guilt and using your life to make up for it through your actions, rather than cutting your life short with some one-off redemptive self-sacrificing act. He berates Hawkeye in the manga for being consumed in her guilt and tells her to prioritize her own happiness. But in the case of Hawkeye, she's not planning to end it. She's letting him know that there is value in keeping your actions in consideration. Don't kill yourself with guilt, even somewhat literally. But don't disrespect those you failed so much as to forget what you did to earn that guilt in the first place. An idea generally spoken upon, again more in the manga, is the idea of positive and negative flow, normally specifically told through Scar's brother. Scar's brother had the positive and the negative flow on each arm. One arm used alchemy to create, and one arm destroyed. It was the cycle of life, the cycle of action. The idea, I think, in summary, is that action leading to productive results, or positive flow, is never something that stops itself from happening. Action leading to display of guilt for the sake alone of being forgiven, rather than for causing real change in the long term as well, is only self-flagellation. Try to create the positive cycle of rebirth and stifle the destruction. There's enough of that built into life already. Ed is generally against the cycle of violence, only the positive flow, and he has a deep belief people can change. You see this with Scar when he realizes he killed Winry's parents wrongly. Ed stops Winry because even if he deserves it in many regards, more suffering and more death only perpetuates more. It has to stop somewhere. You don't always get the ability to be the one who has the right to halt it. So when you do, you should be mature. You should take that opportunity for everyone's sake. And from that empathy, Scar becomes an amazing continuing asset to the team by the end in taking down Bradley. This has been Ed's central tenets, his thoughts on critical thought and independence, his thoughts on guilt and forgiveness. But now, let's cover what I fumbled with 3 years ago in regards to his position on murder versus mercy. Obviously, he favors mercy in nearly every example, but the difference between absolutely not killing and sometimes being questioned, criticized, or giving into is different in mangahood in 03. And so now, I'll let the expert go into those differences and the implications of such.
Similar to mangahood, 2003 spends a lot of time focusing on Ed's resolve to not kill. However, that position isn't really treated as all that noble or heroic. In fact, after Ed fights the Slicer brothers in Lab 5, he says he will let them live. So basically the same as mangahood. But then the Slicer brothers ask him some questions. How can he simply let serial killers walk free? What would he do if they were to hurt someone else? Wouldn't that be a mistake? Later, Ed accidentally kills Greed, and Greed asks him to hunt down the other homunculi. From here, Ed's resolve to never kill becomes a far bigger issue. After all, if he doesn't kill the homunculi, what's he gonna do with them? Beyond that, in this version of the story, he and Al mistakenly made a homunculus of their own, so how's he gonna deal with that? Well, ultimately, Ed does kill their homunculus. However, the story here is vague about whether or not this was the right thing to do. I mean, couldn't there have been some other way to resolve this conflict? Regardless though, Ed did it. That much remains true. Finally, Ed learns that human life is the fuel for all alchemy. So, without realizing it, he has been benefiting from death whenever he used this power. Now, this doesn't exactly make him a hypocrite. After all, he didn't know this, but it certainly focuses more on his ignorance rather than his strength. All this is to say that, where mangahood focuses on the positives of Ed's resolve to never kill, 2003 questions this a whole lot more. In doing so, it provides a really interesting contrast to mangahood, and another version of Ed's morality that is certainly worth examining.
The Morality of Edward Elric. Something filled with change, but a general struggle to value human life and think through his decisions, even if he doesn't always get things right. Thanks so much to ft.Lowart for this little collab. ft.Lowart actually collabed with me on his channel 4 years ago when I had 100 subscribers and he had nearly 8,000. So he saw potential in me before anybody did. Also, if you are unsure of why I've been so absent, I want to get serious here for a second. First of all, please check if you haven't seen the last couple uploads, because YouTube hasn't picked any of them up in the algorithm. Second, give me likes and comments to help this video get picked up so maybe more people do see it. The last video I had that did successful had me basically ask for likes 3 different times in the video, which I didn't want to get down to, but ever since then that has literally been the only video that YouTube has supported, so likes and comments are important. Third, having all my videos bomb was actually really killing my enthusiasm, but I have not been lazy in the background. Even if you haven't been receiving content right now, content is coming, and a whole truckload of it. I have been working really hard in the background for the last 3 months on a giant multi-part series I plan to release on my side channel. It's going to be multiple hours of scripted, edited content. I am and have been working behind the scenes to produce this in advance, and I hope you'll all enjoy once it finally comes out. You are, by current estimation, going to get 6 edited videos a month, ranging from 8 minutes to over an hour for the first 6 months of 2022. I am not quite ready to publicly announce all the details on what it is exactly yet, but very soon I will be including either on Twitter, in the end of a future video, of course on my Patreon, and on my side channel what exactly this project is, so sub to my side channel if you haven't. Also, come by and watch me play SMT5 on stream. Maybe I'll answer some more questions or curiosities you have, whether about this project or not. I tend to treat that place as a place to unveil and talk about upcoming projects pretty freely a lot of the time. Until then, I'm sorry it's been so long, but I hope to see you soon. Thanks so much to my patrons, Friendly Neighbor, Daniel Frousing, My Name is Klein, I Am a Guy, Whizbang2093, Frillneck Lizard, and Icarus.